Hey there, it's James here. In today's tutorial, I wanted to take a look at how to build your own custom RAG system with n8n and Supabase. And basically what this lets you do is train your own custom AI on a bunch of your own data or your own documents, and then be able to either ask it questions over chat or to hook up an AI agent in n8n that can then kind of query your database of custom information. It's actually a lot easier to set up than you first think, and we're going to go through everything from setting up Supabase from scratch through to how to build the actual workflows in n8n, not only to get the data into your database, but then also how to query it. And it's really pretty amazing. So I'm really excited to get started. I thought a good place to kind of kick off might be to just show you a preview of what's possible using this technique. So I'm just going to show you a quick internal system that we've built that's trained on a bunch of our own custom documents, and you can basically chat with it and ask it questions, and it's trained on a bunch of data from both Google Drive and tweets as well. So it's pretty cool. You can bring in data from pretty much anywhere and store it into your RAG database in Supabase. It's really pretty straightforward. So yeah, let's jump in and have a look at that preview and just give you an idea of what it's possible to do. Right, so let's take a look at this example project. I'm going to talk you through all of this. Don't get too intimidated by the amount of different nodes and stuff on here. We're going to go through all of these and explain exactly what they are, and we're going to start off pretty simple. But to start with, I'm just going to show you how we get data into our kind of RAG database. So you see here I've got a simple trigger that's in n8n, and this is basically looking for when a new file is either created or updated in a specific folder in my Google Drive. And then as we go through the workflow, we're going to cover all of this in a minute, but basically what it's doing is downloading that file, saving it into our RAG database in Supabase, and encoding it with an embedding using OpenAI. And that all runs in this one simple workflow. So I'm just going to quickly execute it here just to show you how it works. So it's grabbing that file, downloading it, extracting the text, and uploading it into our RAG database. Really simple. So what does that actually mean? So the whole point of that is that then when we come up to this other section here is that we can actually query that data. So I've loaded in a ton of Google Docs that are all about the Create With conference that we just ran, and I've pulled in all of our tweets as well. So I'm going to show you how that works as well. I will quickly just show you how the tweet ingestion works. So basically here I've got a workflow that uses a third-party Twitter API to pull in posts. You can see I've just got it hard-coded here to pull in posts from Create With HQ. And then it pretty much stores them into Supabase in a similar way that we just saw. But I'm just going to run this now. It runs on a schedule, but I'm going to run it right now. So it's fetching the tweets, splitting them out, deleting any old tweets, and then one by one, it's inserting those into our RAG database. So, and I think we're going to get about 20 tweets at a time here. Yeah. So they've been ingested into our RAG database. And now we can actually query it. So we can ask questions to it in kind of plain English. So I've got our kind of chat window here, which is basically talking directly into this AI agent in n8n. And I'm just going to ask it some questions about not only the Google Docs, but the tweets as well. And I'll just show you how we can kind of pull that data out of the Supabase RAG database and query it from using our AI agent, which has got access to two tools. One of them lets it pull in the Google Docs that we stored, and one of them lets it query the tweets that we stored. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask a question. So I've just asked it to say, what do you know about the Create With conference? and it's going to go and then query our data stores. So first of all, it's going to use AI here just to work out what it's going to do. Then you can see it's querying our Google Docs that are in the Supabase vector database. And hopefully we should get an answer back that's based on all those docs that we've got in there. The AI agent's just parsing all of that. There we go. And so we've got all of our data back, all about the Create With conference, based on all that data that we stored to Supabase. Just to show you how the tweets work as well, I'm going to say, can you tell me the latest tweets? And again, that's going to go to our Supabase RAG that's got our tweets in it here, and hopefully it's going to give us a list of all the latest tweets from our Create With HQ account. So it's rendering the response here, and hopefully we're going to get that listed back. Yeah, so there we go. We've got all of our, basically a summary of all of our last tweets that have gone out. So it gives you an idea. This is just a very simple chat interface on it, but you could imagine in later lessons we'll cover how to build AI agents that can actually use this data in other ways. But even just being able to ask questions to that data is really powerful. And you can embed this chat widget on your own site with a little code snippet as well. So you could use this for support if you wanted to. But yeah, just now that we've kind of showed you how all that works, why don't we dive into setting this up and getting our first one up and running from scratch. So we're going to go and completely start this project afresh with a new Supabase and a new n8n flow and go from there. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to keep this very simple, and for our first step I'm going to download a file from Google Drive that we're going to use then to save into our database. So I'm going to go over to my nodes, choose Google Drive, and for the action I'm going to say download file. And I've actually got a file in my Google Drive that I've made which has got a bunch of information about the Create With conference. So that's called the Create With AI Overview. So I'm just going to stick that in there. And I'm just also going to make sure that we've got this Google file conversion set here so that when we're downloading Google Docs, we're downloading them as text, just to make sure that we're able to work with it in our later workflows. So I'm going to just execute that step there. And then on the other side, you can see we've grabbed our file and we've got our text there. That's basically the text from our Google Doc. And just to show you what it looks like, this is the actual doc in Google Docs. And then in our workflow here, you can see I've got the text from it. So now we've got that. We've got our text. The next thing is I'm going to extract that text so that we can use it in our next step. So extract from text file. Run that on the previous step. So you can see we've got our binary file that contains the text. We run this extract from file, and on the output now we've got our text that we can use in n8n. So now we've got our file and our text from Google. We now need to store it into Supabase. So I'm going to search here for Supabase, and I'm going to choose Supabase Vector Store. And what we want to do is we want to add this document to the vector store. And then when this opens up, you'll see we've got all of our options here. But what we actually need to do first of all now is to go and create our new Supabase credential and get our new Supabase account set up for us to actually store this document in. So let's head over there now. So I'm in Supabase now, and I'm in just what you'll see when you first sign up and you come in. There's basically nothing there. So we're going to set up our project for the first time. So I'm going to click New Project here, and I'm going to give my project a name. I'm going to call it n8n RAG tutorial, just so we've got it there. And I'm just going to give it a password. You'll need to remember whatever this password is because we're going to need it in a few minutes, so make sure you make a note of that. And then obviously you can then choose your region. I'm just going to leave it set to the EU, and then I'm going to hit Create Project. So I'm not going to touch any of those other settings right now. So once that's all run, then we're going to have our new Supabase project here ready to go, and then we can go ahead and start getting all of our connections set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is head back over to n8n, and in here I'm going to say we need to set up a new credential. So I'm going to say create new credential, and I'm going to call this Supabase account test, just so you can see we've got it there in our options. Now we've got to get 2 strings here to store data into the RAG, and I'm going to head back into Supabase and grab those. So to get those 2 bits that we need, we're going to go to our project settings, and then we're going to head into our data API, and in here we can grab our URL. So this is the first thing we need. So I'm going to copy that, head back to n8n and post that in the host section. Then we need our service role secret. So I'm going to head back to Supabase. That's actually just moved. So I'm going to click this Go to API Keys button. And then you can see we've got our service role secret here. So this basically gives complete access to your Supabase database. So I'm going to reveal it because this is just a test project, but you need to keep that safe when you're doing this and make sure that key isn't exposed publicly anywhere. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to hit save, and then it should go green like this, and that tells us basically the connection to Supabase has worked. So what we've got now is we've got our new Supabase account over here, which is empty, no tables or nothing's there right now. And we've now got our credential set up here in n8n, which is connected to that database. So we've got those first bits done. So the next thing we need to do, now we've got Supabase connected, is we actually need to create the table in Supabase where we're going to store all of our documents and their embeddings. So to do that, I'm going to hit the docs button here, which is going to open up the Supabase vector store node docs in n8n. And if you scroll down a little bit, there's a button here that just says quick start for setting up your vector store. Just don't need to really read through this unless you really want to go into great detail. But once you click on that link, the quick start setup, you basically get this query here. And what this is going to do is create our table in Supabase. So you don't actually need to change this at all. So I'm going to grab this, head back into Supabase, go into the SQL editor, write a new snippet, and I'm just going to paste in exactly that as we copied it from the docs. I'm going to run that, and then you'll see here in a second we'll get success, no rows returned. And now if I head back into n8n and refresh my list here, I should have a new table there called documents, which is where we're going to store our embeddings. So now that that's run, so I'll just show you it here in Supabase as well. So yeah, we've basically got our blank table that's got the columns ID, content, metadata, and embeddings. So that's all been set up for us just by running that query. And now we've got our table ready to store our embeddings into. So I'm going to head back into n8n, and I'm just going to close this down because we've got a few more bits that we've got to set up on our Supabase vector node. So the next thing we're going to do is add our embedding tool. So this is what's basically going to do the kind of encoding of the data so that we can basically turn it into a bunch of numbers. We're not going to go too much into what embeddings are in this, but it basically encodes it so that AI can read it. And I've got my OpenAI credential already set up in here. If you haven't already got this set up, you'll just have to go through, add your OpenAI API key in here, and then I'm going to use text embedding small. So I'm just going to hit that. So then we've got our embeddings set up. And then we've got to pick our document loader, and we're just going to use the default document loader. And we're going to load all input data. And because we've already decoded from binary our file, I'm just going to leave this as JSON here. We can see we've got our text from the previous step ready to be embedded here. And I'm actually going to add another option here. So we're going to say metadata. And this is basically extra data that you can add that we can use for filtering on later. So just to keep this simple, I'm going to add a type of doc, and basically every record that gets stored through this workflow is going to have type doc. So that's going to let us filter on it later if we need to. Like in that example that I showed at the beginning, we had two kind of tools. One was calling type doc, and the other one was calling type tweet. So I find it quite handy to kind of set this when you're storing data into your vector database to use this metadata field to kind of adds extra information about it to make it easier to filter on later on. And for now, that's all I'm going to store. So I'm going to store our raw text and I'm going to store type doc, but you might also want to add things like file ID or the file name, other things you might want to filter on later. So I'm going to close out of that. And we've also then got to choose our text splitter. And I'm just going to use our character text splitter, so we don't really need to worry too much about this. It's just we're just going to use the default. We can cover that in more detail later. But it's basically if it's a massive block of text, it's going to split it up for us. So now we have actually everything ready to go to pull our file from Google Drive, extract the text from the binary. Then we're going to save it into our Supabase vector store here. With some basic metadata that it's a document, and we're using the OpenAI embeddings. So now I'm going to run all of this, and hopefully this is going to add this file to our vector store. So there we go, we've downloaded the file, it was embedded and then loaded into the document, and we can see it was actually split up into 7 chunks. So if I head back into our database here in Supabase, we can see that document has been split up and added to our Supabase table. So we've got 7 rows of data. That was that one Google Doc. It was such a long document that that our text splitter split it up into these 7 chunks. And you can see our embeddings, the actual kind of encoded numbers there, and our metadata here as well. So if I just open up one, we can see we've got type doc, but we could have also put file name or a file ID or anything else in there as well. So we've got all of that there. So that is our first step complete. So we've got our file from Google Docs, downloaded it, extracted the data, and stored it into Supabase in our brand new embeddings table. So the next bit we're going to move on to is now how to query that embeddings table and actually how to get data out. There is obviously a lot more that we can cover in this in future lessons, where we're going to do things like making sure that we don't have duplicates. So by deleting existing rows in the vector database. So for example, if we change our Google Doc, we want to make sure we delete the old copy before we put it in. So we're going to cover that, and also how to do all the other stuff like getting tweets in there. But this, I think, just gives you a bit of a feel for how to load any kind of text content into your vector database. So let's move on to that next step, where we're going to take a look at then how to query it. Right, so let's get started with being able to actually query our vector database. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the right here, and for our trigger, we're going to use the on-chat message. So it's basically a simple node that's just going to give us this kind of chat interface here that we saw earlier. That's going to let us chat with our AI agent. So the next step that I'm going to add after our chat, which is I'm just going to leave as it is I'm going to add an AI agent. And for now, I'm going to leave all of that blank. I'm just going to choose our chat model here. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to choose OpenAI. We've already got our credentials set up for that. And I'm going to use the 4.1 model for this. So this is the OpenAI model that we're going to use. Now, the next thing is the memory. So this basically lets the agent remember what has been previously said in the chat. Now, a lot of times you might see people use the simple memory tool here, which is great if you're kind of just starting out. But what it's going to do is just store the memory on the n8n instance itself. But as we've got Supabase set up, it's kind of perfect we could also create another table to store all of our chat history as well. So as well as using Supabase for our embeddings, we can also use it to store our chat history. And we're doing all of this on a free Supabase account. It's super generous what you can do with it. So for our memory, I'm actually going to choose Postgres. So instead of Supabase, we're going to have to choose Postgres here, and we're going to have to go and grab a couple of credentials from Supabase to set this up. So I'm going to choose create new credential, and as you can see, to connect to Postgres, which is basically Supabase, we've got to go and grab a ton of connection fields. So I'm going to head back over to Supabase and go and get those now. So I'm back in Supabase, just on our regular table editor view, and at the top here I'm going to hit connect. So we've actually got to get different credentials than we got last time, because we're connecting directly via to Postgres basically. I'm going to choose the type as PSQL here, and we've got to scroll down a little bit, and it's all the data that we actually need is here in this transaction pooler. So this is where we've got to grab all the bits that we need. So the first thing we need is our host. So I'm going to copy that host and head back to n8n, paste that in here. Then we need our database. So I'm going to grab that as Postgres, already in here, so I'll paste it over anyway. The next thing we need is our user. I'm going to paste that over here. The next thing will be the password. So this was the password that we actually used when we signed up for Supabase. So you can type that in here. And the final bit that I've got to grab is the port. And our port here is 6543. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm just going to put my password in there. Then I'm going to hit save. And you should see, again, we've got this green connection to tested successfully. And I'm just going to give this account another name again, so we know what it is. It's our test demo account. There we go. Right, so I can close this down again and make sure I've got that selected. That's all we need to do for setting up our memory. So we're all good to go there. So the next thing we need to do is give our AI agent access to actually query Supabase, because all we've done there is just set up our memory storage for our chat history. So I'm going to go into Tools, and I'm going to look for Supabase again, Supabase Vector Store. And here we are going to basically give it the tool to query our vector store. So I'm going to say company documents. This is basically giving the vector store a name, so our AI agent knows what to do. And we're going to give it a description here as well. So this is describing the kind of stuff that's stored in our vector store. So I'm going to say contains documents about create with. So when our AI agent goes looking for information, it knows that this vector store contains that information. So you might want to give it as much detail as possible when setting that up. And the table name we're going to select is documents, and I'm going to leave the limit 4 there, and I'm going to leave the including metadata on. This is where we can also add our metadata filter. So I am going to add that filter that we did earlier. So I am going to say type is docs, which we kind of don't need to do, but as we set it up earlier, we're going to use that here. So if I go back into Supabase, we can see our table, and we've got all of our records here. So now we're pretty close to being able to query them. So I'm going to execute this one and just close it down, and I'm going to save it. And then we've got to add our embeddings again. So we've just got to go back to OpenAI, use our same small embeddings, and basically we should be good to go now. We're actually all ready to go and try it out and do our first query against it. And I'm actually going to open up our chat here, and I'm just going to write that same query that we did at the beginning. So what do you know about create with? And then I'm going to run that, and that's basically going to go to the AI agent. which is then going to look for tools, and it's going to find that tool that has all the documents about Create With here, and it's going to use that tool to then hopefully pull those results back from the vector database and answer our question. So let's try it here, and we should see that run. So yep, it's using our vector database. It's got a response which is now being written by OpenAI, and hopefully we're going to get a response here in a second. Yeah, there we go. So this is basically they're going to run that query against our Supabase vector store, which was contained that Google Doc that we stored into it, and we've got back a ton of data basically that was in that document. So even though we've only put one document in there, we're already able to start using it. But you could imagine you could put thousands and thousands of documents in there and start to be able to query them. And in future lessons, I'm going to go back and cover how to ingest things like tweets and content from LinkedIn or search engine results, your text from websites, absolutely tons of stuff. And we're going to be storing it all into our RAG database and then querying it. So yeah, here we've just basically queried it with pretty simple chat interface, but in later editions, I think we'll go into using these AI agents in much more detail, where they're pulling structured data back out of our RAG instead of just through a chat interface, which is where things get really interesting. So I hope that gave you a bit of an introduction of how to set this stuff up. I think it's really, really exciting, and it's amazingly powerful that you can do all of this now without writing any code. And again, we're using a free Supabase account, and we're also using self-hosted n8n. So this is incredibly cheap to operate as well, and can scale really well. So yeah, that's it for this time. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. So drop us a reply. But yeah, thanks very much. See you soon.